YOU do that instead of that, just to not break the energy. That was beautiful. I'd not heard that arrangement before. It's like the prayer of St. Francis. How are y'all feeling? Last Sunday, I left shortly after the service, which is unusual for me to leave so soon afterwards, but I missed so much. I missed the Friendship Sunday potluck. I missed Julia Espy's great class. I missed the magic cleanup of the garage sale. Isn't that amazing? And you come back and it's like, really? There was a garage sale here? I told you last week that I was going to a family gravesite burial, and many of you asked me about it, were concerned and wondering what had happened, so I'm just going to tell you a little. It was for my brother-in-law, Mike. Mike is married to my husband's sister, so it's his brother-in-law too. Mike actually died in February, and he'd been ill for a number of years, and we just buried his ashes last Sunday. And the family had asked me to conduct the service, and so I did, and it was just a lovely day, and lots of just family and close friends, but that ended up to be about 50 or 60 of us gathered around, and it was lovely. He was an absolutely wonderful man, and I'm going to miss him so much. He was a people person, fun and very loving. And during the last years of his life, while he struggled with cancer and pain and illness, he became more and more centered in love, centered in who he was and what he was here for. The last surgery that Mike had left him with only a portion of his vocal cords. And so it was extremely difficult for him to speak. And he would communicate often by writing out notes or sending emails or text messages. At his funeral back in February, there were displays like normal of many photographs, but there were also displays of his many emails and text messages to all of us, and they were so moving. His words shined with wisdom and love, and I sensed that I was watching him become pure spirit. He suffered pain, and yet his message was one of love and hope, and just to live life to the fullest and tell people how you feel about them in this moment, to look for the good and everything. And those are kind of themes that we have here at Unity. Mike has 3 children. They're all adult children now. And he often told them that he didn't want gifts for his birthday or Christmas. What he'd prefer was a letter. If they would write to him and tell him how much he meant to them, or what they learned from having him as their father, what they valued in their relationship. And those letters meant a lot to Mike. And now they mean a lot to his grieving family. One of his daughters shared a poem with me, and she actually asked me to read it last Sunday at the gravesite. Mike had given it to her a few years before his most recent surgery. I'd like to share it with you today. It's called What Will Matter. It was written by a man named Michael Josephson. What will matter? Ready or not, someday it will all come to an end. There will be no more sunrises, no minutes, hours, or days. All the things you collected, whether treasured or forgotten, will pass to someone else. Your wealth, fame, and temporal power will shrivel to irrelevance. It will not matter what you owned or what you owed. Your grudges, resentments, frustrations, and jealousies will finally disappear. So too your hopes, ambitions, plans, and to-do lists will be complete. The wins and losses that once seemed so important will fade away. It won't matter where you came from or what side of the tracks you lived on in the end. It won't matter whether you are beautiful or brilliant. Even your gender and skin color will be irrelevant. So what will matter? How will the value of your days be measured? What will matter is not what you bought, but what you built. Not what you got, but what you gave. What will matter is not your success, but your significance. What will matter is not what you learned, but what you taught. What will matter is every act of integrity, compassion, courage, sacrifice that enriched, empowered, or encouraged others to emulate your example. What will matter is not your competence, but your character. What will matter is not how many people knew you, but how many people will feel a lasting loss when you're gone. What will matter is not your memories, but the memories of those who loved you. What will matter is how long you will be remembered by whom and for what. Living the life that matters doesn't happen by accident. It's not a matter of circumstance, but of choice. Choose to live a life that matters. Again, this was written in 2003 by Michael Josephson. If you'd like to see it, you can find it at www.charactercounts.org. Choose to live a life that matters. In the last years of Mike's life, I watched him shed attachments. He let go of attachment to possessions and to the past, and his priorities shifted. Anger and resentments and hurts didn't seem to matter anymore. I believe he came to a place of complete forgiveness, even forgiving the disease that would eventually take his life. He forgave everyone, and he found a deep peace within himself. So how important is forgiveness? You may remember this past year, we worked through a book together. On Sunday lessons, I talked about it often. Robert Brummett is a Unity minister, and he teaches at Unity Institute. He teaches the ministerial students there. He wrote the book, Living Originally, 10 Spiritual Practices to Transform Your Life. And we worked through that book together. And in the book, he spells out 5 core spiritual practices that he recommends that we do every single day. And you know what one of them is? Forgiveness. He called it unlimited forgiveness. He says we pay a huge price if we don't forgive. When we don't forgive, we cut ourselves off from source, from our wholeness, and from our divine nature. Edwene Gaines is another prominent New Thought teacher. She teaches about prosperity, and she's written a book called The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. You know that book, some of you? Well, guess what? One of the laws is forgiveness. She says that we can't manifest our good or live in true wholeness without doing our forgiveness work. She says forgiveness is essential for health and wholeness. So I ask you again, how important is forgiveness to you? Anger and blame and conflict and resentment and fear and bitterness, all negative thinking and feelings, they cause our hearts to constrict and muscles in our body to tighten, and our mind gets taken over by the amygdala, and all those repeating thoughts and emotions just block out the divine wisdom that lives within us, the kindness and love that's the truth of us. They get obscured by the monkey mind of repeating past hurts. And when we do that, we get headaches, backaches, stomach aches, we can't sleep, we experience fear, anxiety, or depression, we're tense, we're irritable, and we can't understand why we're not happy anymore. If we want to experience happiness and joy in our lives, if we want to choose a life that matters, then we need to practice forgiveness. Many of you know Jack Kornfield. He's a Buddhist teacher, written many, many books, well-known writer and teacher of our time. He says there's 3 directions of forgiveness. The first one is wanting forgiveness from other people. Wanting forgiveness from someone else for something that you've done or said. The second one is forgiving ourselves. And the third direction is forgiving others for things that they've done or said that have hurt us. The first direction, wanting forgiveness from other people. Have you apologized to someone recently? Have you asked someone to forgive you? Those are very brave and courageous things to do. In 12-step recovery groups, people are taught to take ownership of their behaviors and actions and word, to take responsibility in life for the harm that they've done to others, to make amends to people. The hitch is that person may not want to forgive. And that unwillingness to forgive is about them. It speaks of where they are emotionally and spiritually. It's not good or bad, it's not right or wrong, it's just where they are at that point of time. And that's okay. Is there someone that you think that you need to apologize to? Or can you think of anyone right now? Because it's a good practice. It's a very good practice to make amends and ask for forgiveness. But we need to be able to let go and move on and heal whether or not that other person does forgive us. The second direction, forgiving ourselves, is a deep part of spiritual practice. It's a huge step in healing. Self-forgiveness also ties in with forgiveness from spirit, from our higher power, or higher self. But let me tell you this, if you're seeking forgiveness from God, or from spirit, you've already got it, totally, unconditionally. It's there. You are forgiven. I love how Edwina Gaines will put it, and she's got this delightful southern accent, which I can't do, but she said, God thinks you are the sweetest little thing that ever lived. That's how God sees you. And when you mess up, it's okay. God forgives you. You know, we're so hard on ourselves, aren't we? It's often more difficult to forgive ourselves than to forgive other people. In Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 and 22, Peter asked Jesus about forgiveness. He says, how many times should I forgive others? 7 times? And Jesus says, 7 times 70. We've probably always thought of that scripture about forgiving other people, but I'd like you to take a minute and think about it in terms of self-forgiveness. 7 times 70. That represents an infinite amount of times, an unlimited and never-ending supply of forgiveness. Can you say to yourself, you're the sweetest little thing that ever lived? You're so precious. You messed up, but oh well. Learn from that and move on. Let it go. The third direction of forgiveness is forgiving others. The Buddha said this wise saying, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is an ancient and eternal law. In Unity, we hear this all the time. Change your thinking, change your life. Being angry and bitter and holding on to that is not going to change what happened in the past. Holding a grudge and hanging on to resentment is not going to correct whatever error was made, whatever damage was done. What does all that hanging on really do? It recycles, doesn't it? It recycles negative thoughts. It boils up in our consciousness and creates disharmony and illness, all those things I talked about, headaches and not being able to sleep. Does it affect who we're angry with? Not really. They could be on a cruise ship having a great time, or at a concert, or having a meal with a friend, and totally oblivious to the suffering that we go through. It's you and me experiencing the consequences of unforgiveness, thinking about, remembering, reliving the emotions, re-feeling all that same old hurt, recycling over and over. Being angry and bitter is not going to change what the other person does in the future. Holding a grudge and hanging on to resentment is not going to protect us from getting hurt in the future either. All it does is cause us to hurt ourselves in this present moment. What resentments might you be holding today? Is there some old baggage that you can think of? Because we have a choice in this. The past is gone. Forgiveness means giving up all hope of a better past. Don't you love that? Forgiveness means giving up all hope of a better past. Forgiveness brings immense relief, and it allows us to heal and move on. Forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. In fact, we can forgive someone and never even tell them. Forgiveness is an internal experience, an internal spiritual practice. It's a shift in our being. Jack Kornfield says there is a temple of forgiveness in our hearts. Let's go there. Let's go there every day and just live in that heart. Because it doesn't serve us to keep reliving the old wounds and the old hurts and hanging on to grudges. If we want to live a life that matters, we need to heal and move on. We need to learn how to forgive. I'm going to ask you some questions now, and don't raise your hands. Answer these in your mind. Have you totally forgiven your parents? Have you totally, if you're divorced, have you totally forgiven your ex-spouse? How about your body? Are you at peace with your body? Are you at peace with your boss and your coworkers? Is there someone in your life that you can't quite seem to forgive? Is there something in your past that seems totally unforgivable? Here's a story that Jack Kornfield tells in his book, The Art of Forgiveness, Loving Kindness and Peace. Imagine you're heading home, walking on a sidewalk with your arms filled with grocery bags, and you're thinking about the delightful meal that you're going to make when you get home with these fresh groceries. And as you're walking, someone bumps into you and you lose your balance and fall, and the eggs are smashed and the fruit and vegetable go rolling out into the street. And you're angry and you start to get up and you're going to cuss that person out who knocked you over. And you turn and see that there's another person lying on the ground in the midst of all these groceries, trying to get up, reaching for his cane, and you see that he's blind. And in that instant, that anger changes to, can I help you get up? To compassion and love and forgiveness. That's how quickly forgiveness can happen if you allow it. I'm offering a 3-week forgiveness workshop starting Thursday night, June 18th. I wanted to teach another class before I leave on August 1st, and I thought, what better thing to teach than forgiveness? So if you want to let go of some old burdens, this is the time and place for you. It's not a book study. This is experiential. It's a healing circle. So come if you're ready to let go of some things that you've been holding on to for too long, things that you want to let go of. I'll be leading some meditations and giving you assignments, and I guarantee that you'll feel lighter after the class. But for now, as a spiritual practice, I ask you all to start a list. When you go home today, begin writing a list of all the people you want to forgive, all the people you're holding resentments or grudges about. Make that list. You don't have to forgive them. Just make the list to see who they are, and so you bring it into consciousness that it's there. add the names that come to you, and be sure that you put your own name on the list. And then I'm going to ask you that every morning after you read the daily word, if that's part of your spiritual practice, after you read the daily word or after you have had your prayer and meditation time for the day, bring that list out. Just read the names. That's all you need to do. It's the beginning. It's a step forward, an opening to become willing to forgive. If we choose to live a life that matters, forgiveness is definitely part of the recipe. Let's learn to forgive ourselves and others. A world of peace and joy opens up to us when we forgive. Remember that. There's a temple of forgiveness in our hearts. Today's affirmation was, I forgive myself and others and embrace life. I am a free soul. I think maybe if we can pull out your bulletin and say that along with me. And it's up here on the screen too, thanks Deanna. Let's say it together. I forgive myself and others and I embrace life. I am a free soul. And you are. You are a divine light in this world. And you have a temple of forgiveness in your heart. Namaste.